Hello Year 5 and welcome to this week's video, which is a summary of what we've been looking at in science this term and what we'll be looking at next. As you know, in science we've been looking at life cycles, the life cycles of all living things, and noting that every living thing does have a life cycle which goes through its early development, how it grows onto maturity, and eventually obviously leads on to its demise. The national curriculum statements, the things that the government wants us to study are the life cycles of insects, birds, amphibians, mammals, reproduction in plants, and human development from birth to old age. Now, we've done a lot of that already, and we'll be moving on to human development over the next couple of weeks. So we'll be looking at the different life cycles as we have done. This week or next week, we'll actually be looking at the life cycle of birds, having already done plants, amphibians, and what have you. So we'll be looking at eggs as well as birds' eggs and what each part of the bird's egg does. So we all know that a life cycle is a series of changes that living things go through from the beginning of its life until its death. It's a continuous sequence of change undergone by any organism from one primary form as a gamete, i.e. when it first becomes fertile, to the development of the same form where it reproduces young. And in my last video, we went through the key vocabulary. So we know very well now that the life cycle of any living organism, any living thing, be it a bird, mammal, insect, amphibian, whatever, or even a plant, starts with fertilization, which is the fusion of male and female gametes. Once that stage has happened, we get growth, the gradual development in maturity, age, size, weight, height. Things tend to grow into their maturity, and they reach maturity when they reach the capability to reproduce. So that's when they are mature, when they reach the capability, because of course all living things desire to reproduce onto the next generation. And reproduction is a biological process of which new offspring are produced from their parents. And it's a fundamental feature of all living life, and that then starts the life cycle around and around again, and that's we know is the full life cycle. However, the individual organism, no matter what it is, if it could be a tree or a mouse, will eventually gradually decline, lose the ability to reproduce, and then will lose all its biological functions and die. And we've seen in videos this week that then the energy from that particular organism will go back into the soil, and the process goes again through fertilisation, etc., of plants, and continues to grow. So, as I say, we've already looked at plants, we've looked at butterflies and frogs. Those are particularly interesting because, of course, they all go through that series of metamorphosis where they actually in life change from one form into something completely different. So a caterpillar, for example, becomes a chrysalis before it becomes an adult butterfly, and a frog becomes a tadpole, which obviously breathes underwater before it becomes a froglet, and then obviously a frog which breathes outside of the water but still obviously needs to live close to the water. Next week we're looking at birds, we're looking at how birds lay eggs, what each part of the egg does, and the whole reproduction and life cycle of a bird. So we'll actually be dissecting some chickens' eggs to see what they look like, see if we could identify the various parts. And then we will be moving on to human development and how humans develop and grow as they go from the baby stage through to their maturity and obviously eventually into old age. So looking forward to teaching you that, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Goodbye.